Hello again. The famous war photographer Robert Capa was the one who said that if your photographs aren't good enough, then you're not close enough. He was a war photographer and he took some amazing photos of many different wars over the years. But in the context of street portraits or portraiture in general, I think we can actually interpret this in another way. And being closer doesn't necessarily mean physically closer, and it can also mean emotionally. And although I don't always talk to my subjects when I take street photos, quite often I do, and I find that sometimes the results are actually a lot better than having just taken a picture without asking or without having any interaction with the subject. One of my best memories of speaking to one of my street photography subjects is when I was in Beijing. I was at the time living in Shanghai, but I was going to Beijing frequently for business trips, and being a keen photographer, whenever I had a spare moment, I would take my camera with me and wander around the streets of Beijing. One day I was walking down a small alleyway where there were a lot of residential houses, and I saw an old man just sitting outside on the street near where he lived. And I got talking to him. I eventually took his photo, and he was very happy to be photographed. And I thought nothing of it. Like many street photos, I then just carried on walking, and that was that. And the picture was okay. It wasn't particularly remarkable. But what was remarkable in this situation was that a year later, I was wandering around the same area in Beijing. I was also on another business trip. And I saw the same man again, sitting in a very similar location to where I photographed him a year ago. So I asked him, I said, "Do you actually live around here?" And he confirmed that indeed that was where he lived. And at that time I was traveling very frequently back and forth to Beijing. So a week later, I returned to Beijing again, but this time, knowing where he lived, I had prepared a large print of his portrait that I took of him a year ago, and I actually had it framed as well. And I wandered around the area, and sure enough, there he was. And I presented him with this framed photo of himself that I'd taken a year ago. And I have to say that he was just so happy. And I think that's one of the great satisfactions of being a street photographer, or any kind of portrait photographer really, to be honest, is that response you get when the subject sees the final print. I mean, remarkably, this man was, I don't know, maybe 70 or 80, but he remembered exactly the previous year when I took the picture. And the reason I know he really did remember is because when I took the picture, I was with a friend who's an Englishman, an English friend of mine, and he remembered that I was with what he called a foreigner, even though I'm technically also a foreigner. So I presented him with this photograph, and he was so happy. He invited me into his home to meet his family, and they were all very happy to sort of see this photo. And one of them took me aside and just sort of thanked me for doing such a nice thing, and saying that, to put it delicately, they said that, you know, he's quite old, he wouldn't be around for much longer, and that I'd obviously made him very happy. This was actually in 2006, and the picture I think was 2005. So it was my very first digital SLR, the Canon 300D, if you're interested. And he and his family were so grateful that they actually invited me to stay for dinner. Unfortunately, I had a plane to catch back to Shanghai, so I didn't take them up on that offer. And given that that was, 16, 17 years ago now, I'm guessing that the old man has probably passed away. But it's really nice to know that that photo is probably still hanging in the house of his relatives. And they'll probably still be looking at that photo every day and remembering that this young then man who took the picture of their family member and gifted it to him a year later. So why am I telling this story? Well, I think that many people are very nervous about taking pictures of people. They're worried that the people might be angry or might be unhappy. And I think this is another side of the coin. And I think that knowing that there is also the possibility of making someone very happy, hopefully it'll make it a lot easier for many of us street photographers to be encouraged to take more pictures of people on the street, or at least to talk to more people on the street, and get to know more people on the street. And knowing that what you're doing, apart from having the possibility of making someone angry, can also have the possibility of making some people very happy. And I think knowing that will make it easier to do what we do. So if you have been a bit nervous about going out on the streets, taking pictures of people, hopefully you'll think about this story and be inspired to really keep going and keep taking pictures. And who knows, maybe one of your pictures will also make somebody very, very happy one day. So thanks for watching. So if you haven't seen it already, I do have another video which talks about whether or not you should ask for permission before taking a photo of a stranger on the street. And you can have a look at that video right here if you haven't already. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much.